Please do.
All right. First off, thanks for everyone for coming. We know this is a serious situation we're dealing with, but we want to keep you informed, which is why we set this call up for you. Just so you're aware, this call will be recorded, and it will be distributed to folks who are unable to join the call. But I'm going to open it up to Randy Irwin, NFFE National President, for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. So first, just want to let everybody know that if there happens to be anybody from the media on this call, this is an internal call for NFFE IAM members. This is not a media call. We are not on the record. In fact, if a media person is on the call, please get off. Internal NFFE call. So here to talk to our members. Anyway, great to see everybody. I've invited you here to share what we know about the possible government shutdown and begin discussing what NFFE's response is. Before I get to that, I want to thank all the dues-paying members of this union who are joining us today. It is only dues-paying members that make our fight possible. So thank you all very much, for being members of this union. I also want to thank all the local and council officers, stewards, and other union leaders that are on the call. You are the leaders in this union that make what we do happen. We couldn't do any of it without you. And so we just really appreciate all that you do for this union every single day. I do want to warn folks that some of the comments today will touch on politics. And, that's just the nature of this government shutdown. The potential of this is largely rooted in politics, and so it's a little bit unavoidable. That being said, I want to reiterate that NFFE is the most bipartisan union that you will find anywhere in America. We work equally with all Republicans, Democrats, and independents to advocate for you all. And I believe we do a really, really tremendous job of doing that. So we're very proud of that. And the key point here is also that members of all political backgrounds are welcome in this union. So, I want you to know here, just logistically, if we're going to take some questions at the end. So if you have any questions, you can either, Matt, you want them emailed or you want them put in the comments?
Either one works, whatever's easiest.
Okay, let's say email Matt Dorsey. Email Matt Dorsey at mdorsey@n. We've already received several questions, but we imagine there might be others as this call goes on. At the end, we're going to take as many as we can. We will have a hard stop at 3 p.m. Eastern, so in 53 minutes from now. So again, if you have any questions, send them to mattdorsey@nffe.org. So as I'm sure most of you are aware, the federal government will run out of money at the end of this fiscal year, which ends this Saturday night, September 30th at midnight. Unless Congress passes a continuing resolution, or sometimes they just call it a CR, in the next 5 days, the government will shut down, and that'll start first thing Sunday morning. At this point, we believe it is highly likely that this shutdown will happen, but it is anybody's guess at this point how long it will last. As you probably all know, the crisis is mostly a fight between congressional Republicans in the House, a relatively few members of far-right Freedom Caucus members, which have up until now prevented funding legislation from being passed in the U.S. House of Representatives. We will all be watching very closely these next few days to see what develops. And I should say, myself and Steve Lenkart and Matt Dorsey are in daily contact with all the critical offices, House leadership in both the Republican and Democratic side, in the Senate, both the House and Democratic side. So we're very close to this, and helping form solutions to it. But we're close to the action and monitoring this very closely and hoping and influencing it for the betterment of NFFE IAM members. So one thing that we would like you all to do, and this is very, very important. We'd like to ask each and every one of you to contact your members of Congress. Try to do it today, but if you can't do it today, do it in the next couple days for sure. Make sure you do it on your own time using your own phone, computer, or other device, and politely demand that your House rep and 2 U.S. senators take action to end this shutdown. I'm going to give you the phone number to the Capitol switchboard. You can call your congressional representatives at this number, and here it is. The number is 202-224-3121. You call that number, and they'll be able to put you in touch with your House member and both of your U.S. senators. Again, that number is 202-224-3121. And the message is very simple. We're saying, do your job. Do your job and fund the federal government. Do not let fringe members of Congress with no interest in governing, keep that from happening. Also, NFFE has created a page on our website with information and templates for you and your members to use to demand action by Congress. So essentially, you can either call Congress, and actually, we'd like you to do both. Call your members of Congress and also write them a letter. And so, you can go to the NFFE website, and it's called the NFFE Government Shutdown Center, the NFFE Government Shutdown Center, which you can find right on the main page of the NFFE website right now. And it has, all kinds of guidance. And we're going to be continuing to update that. But the thing that we'd like you to do right now is to go there and write your members of Congress. And you can find the action alert right there on that page. So, please go and do that. In previous actions alerts, we've had thousands of people write. And I should say, you don't need to limit it to just yourself. If it's, members of your family, members of your community, this government in shutdown is going to impact every single person in this country without question. It'll impact millions of people directly, and everybody will be impacted indirectly. So please go ahead and call your members of Congress, write your members of Congress, and encourage everybody that, in your circles to do the same thing. Again, just be careful. Make sure that you use your own personal phone, tablet, computer, your own time to make those contacts of those congressional offices. So I thank you in advance for doing that. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Steve Lenkart, who is our executive director and our chief lobbyist. And he's going to give you an update about what's happening legislatively with regard to the government shutdown. Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks, Randy, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone on the call. So as you've probably seen in the news, it's no secret that things are a bit of a mess here on Capitol Hill. The Senate right now is working on what they call a clean CR, a clean continuing resolution, which means that it's essentially a bill from the Senate that orders continuing funding of everything within the government at current levels. It just sort of hits the pause button on any increases or decreases and just continues funding until the Congress can pass appropriations bills. In the past, we've endured many CRs. Most of them, you were probably unaware that a CR was even taking place, because if it's done without controversy and it's done smooth, and there's a small delay in getting the appropriations bills done by a month or two, most people don't even know the difference when they're operating under CR versus an appropriations bill. This time is a little bit different. As Randy mentioned, there is a faction in the House on the very far right who is challenging Speaker McCarthy and his leadership team. They are trying to shut down the government. That is actually their goal, to do that. And they are very close to achieving their goal. The Senate has taken the lead for the moment. They're working on a clean continuing resolution, which means there's no bells and whistles on it. It's simply a bill that goes over to the House and says, hey, just keep everything going at the current level for the next month or two. I believe right now they're looking at a 45-day clean CR. That has to still go through the Senate and has to go to the House procedurally. And then the House has to take it up and vote on it. Best case scenario, we're probably looking at the weekend. So it is all but certain we will endure some kind of a shutdown, even if the CR that the Senate is working on goes to the House and it gets passed by the House. There will probably be at least a couple of days shutdown at the beginning of next week. So unlike in the past where we warned the CR may or may not be coming, we're warning you this one probably is coming. So be prepared early next week, starting Sunday, Monday for those of you that work regular office weeks, to check in with your supervisors. Show up to work and let them send you home and say you're furloughed. Don't assume you are essential or not essential, but make sure you show up and let them do that. So back to congressional affairs. It's not likely that we're going to get the CR pulled off in time to save a shutdown. How long a shutdown would last is also completely up to the House and whether Speaker McCarthy can get his caucus in order and get a bill to the floor and up to the Senate that is palatable for both the Senate and the White House to get signed into law. I am optimistic at this point that what the Senate is going to present to the House may work. Again, even it may entail a short shutdown, best case scenario, so be prepared for that. Can't say that enough. But I am optimistic that hopefully this will be a very short-term shutdown. As a reminder, everybody who's on this call, in past shutdowns, we had to go back and fight for employee pay. Back pay plus interest. NFFE was critical in designing and passing a law in 2019 that fixed that problem permanently for us. So if we do incur a shutdown and you do get a lapse of your paycheck, you will be fully restored when the government opens up. That includes pay plus interest. It includes your TSP contributions from your agency and includes restoration of lead time and everything else. So we passed that law in 2019 to make sure that that's one thing that we didn't have to do every time we shut down was go back and beg to make sure that federal employees were getting paid. So every day this week we'll turn up new information and we're going to send that new information to you as quickly as we get it. I urge you to sign up for NFFE news on the website. You don't have to log into the website to do that. You can just go to the website, drop your email in there and sign up. I highly recommend you use a personal email in case you don't have access to your business email. On the larger appropriations front, a CR is a temporary fix. It just holds us over to the next form of funding that we can get through to fully fund the government for the rest of the year. There's much discussion going about how that's going to happen. The Senate is talking about either several minibuses or a larger omnibus bill, which means that they take all those individual appropriations bills, they jam them together and they pass them. So we don't know anything more than that right now. We are eyeballing that, of course, with everybody else. There seems to be some hope that they're going to be able to do that before the end of the year. But the way politics are growing, we just don't know. So in the short term, this means that this shutdown would begin Sunday morning. That's halfway through pay period 20. And if history dictates, and don't quote me on this, but this is probably what would happen if we do go into a shutdown mode. On the 9th, those paychecks from pay period 20 would go out. On the 9th, you would receive half of your pay in that paycheck. And then you wouldn't get an additional paycheck until the government comes back. And I don't know if that first paycheck will have your lump sum restoration in it or not. That's something you're going to have to check with your agencies. So a special note to our wildland firefighters, you have a lot riding, not so much this CR, but your funding for your base pay is running out. For Department of Interior, it's the middle of October. For USDA, it's November 4th. We are, the timing is just unfortunately perfect that our issue for your pay is also coinciding with the CR and the government running out of money. So we are asking and have agreements from all four corners, meaning the House and Senate, majority leader and minority leaders. So Senator Schumer, Senator McConnell, Speaker McCarthy and Leader Jeffries to include wildland firefighter funding in temporary vehicles, whether it's a CR or whether it's a minibus or omnibus. These are all political agreements. It doesn't mean that it's done, but we are working incredibly hard with them. And it said not daily conversations. So it's almost hourly conversations with the leadership teams in both the House and Senate to make sure the firefighters aren't forgotten in whatever vehicle goes forward, whether it's a CR, whether it's a supplemental funding package, whether it's a full year appropriation, omnibus, minibus. We don't really care as long as that those provisions that keep those pay raises going are included in that. And we do have some, I want to say that please send the message out there to the other firefighters. All is not lost. We have a pretty good idea that if a CR is developed, that there will be a continuation of IIJA funding within that CR, which means that as long as that CR goes, you won't see any decrease in your paychecks. So that's what we're working on now to make sure that that's in whatever happens over the weekend or whenever the government starts up again, and of course, through the remainder of the year. So the good news is we have wide bipartisan support, House and Senate, rank and file and leadership members in both the House and Senate. We have widespread media coverage. We've been doing press conferences and Hill meetings and events in the states and local districts. And we've also had a lot of wildland firefighters coming up to Capitol Hill the past couple of weeks and lobbying door to door. And the response to that has been absolutely tremendous. So firefighters are on the mind of everybody in this country, largely because of the work that you all have been doing. So what can we all do as feds, as federal employees? Here's what we can do is, again, sign up for NFFE News. We will have the latest and greatest information and some inside scoops, hopefully to you before they even get it to the media. Because we are just that good. We have 3 action alerts up there that I want you to be aware of. One is an action alert. You can send letters to the House and Senate against the shutdown. We have 2 other bills up there that's really interesting that I would really love to see support from our members on. Bill number 1 is a bill called the End the Shutdowns Act, and that is a brilliant bill that NFFE co-designed with members of the House and Senate. And what that bill would do, if it's passed into law, it would automatically require that a CR start whenever there's a lapse of funding. So in other words, we would never have a shutdown again if we get to the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, there's no agreement on how to fund the government. Even if there's no agreement on a CR will automatically start up, and that'll solve the problem of an actual shutdown from ever happening again. So that is something that we would like to push during this CR season, because there's, it's going to be all eyes on CR stuff, and there's no better time to push it. There's a second bill called the Federal Employees Civil Relief Act, and that is to prevent anything bad happening to federal employees during a shutdown, such as getting late marks on your credit, having your home foreclosed, having your if your mortgage is late, it'll protect you from late fees and from marks on your credit history and so forth. So it just gives a little bit of top cover to federal employees. That again also is a bill that was co-designed by NFFE and people in the House. So those 3 things are things you can do right now after this phone call. Pop on the NFFE website and crank those letters out. We would appreciate your support for that. So just if the government does shut down, just know this is a whole government shutdown. Last time in 2019, it was a partial government shutdown. So it wasn't the full effects of a shutdown wasn't felt because half the government was running. This is a full government shutdown. This is going to be hard for it to keep going for any length of time. The pressure to get the government going again will be tremendous, which is why I'm optimistic that this will be a short shutdown. Because not only are you not getting paid, military is not getting paid, and a lot of contractors are getting paid. Close to 6 or 7 million people are going to have their paychecks delayed, and that's a big chunk of people, and also will dent the economy as well too. So, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Randy. Thank you for your support, and again, when you sign up for FE News, please use a personal email in case during the shutdown you don't have access to your government email.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So now we're going to go to our general counsel, Jeff Friday, who's going to tell you how, to the best of our knowledge right now, how the government shutdown would impact federal workers and the agencies where we represent, and some other guidance. So Jeff, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Randy. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to cover a couple of things, shutdown basics. Um, folks are generally going to fall into two buckets. They're either going to be essential employees, which in OPM's latest guidance, they call accepted employees, but historically, they've been called essential employees. And those are folks that have to work during the shutdown, but they don't get paid until the end, until it's over and funding is secured. The other folks are what quote unquote non-essential, and they get furloughed and they will not work during the shutdown. Now, and Steve mentioned, what is a pretty different dynamic this time around from previous shutdowns is that we were able to secure that change in the law after the 2019 shutdown with the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act. And so furloughed folks know that when the shutdown is over, they will be paid. And so that hopefully that'll be a relief. I know I'm married to a federal employee, and she's very relieved about that. I'm very relieved that she knows that when it's all said and done, she's going to get paid, as opposed to in the past when, we were always able to get people paid, but it was uncertain and there was uncertainty around that. And as far as, we're getting a lot of questions. Am I going to be essential? Who's going to be essential? I don't think we're going to, typically we don't know that until the weekend, maybe Monday morning, but every individual employee should be told no later than Monday morning. If they're going to be furloughed, they get a furlough notice. And if they're essential, then they get instructions about what they're supposed to do. The other thing, and again, Steve mentioned this, is just when people are going to get paid. We got questions about that, and so the pay period ended last week on the 23rd. So folks are going to get paychecks either this Friday or whatever their normal payday would be, and then again, as Steve mentioned, because the last week of September is the first week of a pay period, then folks would get a half paycheck on or around the 13th, whatever their normal payday is. And then on the 27th, there would be no check. And so if you kind of take what happened when we had the 35-day shutdown, I mean, that's, if it goes on for quite a while, that's when the rubber really begins to hit the road, when people are don't have a paycheck coming in and have to pay their rent or their mortgage or whatever. So there's that on the shutdown page, and I think Matt will talk more about that. But one document that you have access to is the OPM guidance for shutdown furloughs. It's on there. It was redone in December of 2021. It's like an FAQ on shutdowns, and it's 50 pages long. So there's a lot of questions that are answered in there. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, and then we'll talk more when we get to individual questions. Thanks, Randy.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, now we're going to go to Matt Dorsey, who is leading our communications effort around the shutdown. So Matt, go ahead, take it away.
Well, as Randy and Steve mentioned, we've set up a website. It's right on the front page of NFFE.org. It's called the NFFE Government Shutdown Center, and there you'll find additional resources on how to navigate through the shutdown. For right now, our top 3 steps are: first, report to work unless you have received official correspondence from your agency that indicates that you've been furloughed. Your second step there is to sign up for our NFFE e-news, which is our email blast system, using your personal email address in the event that you can't use your government email during a shutdown. And then lastly, as others have touched on, we'd like you to use our Action Alert Center to tell Congress not to shut the government down, as well as to support those 2 additional shutdown bills. At the bottom of the page, there's additional guidance from OPM and other agencies, the White House, the IAM, and as well as us. We've also added a new letter that Randy has sent to Congress earlier today, as well as our press release stemming from that letter. But any other updates, we'll be revising that page as soon as they come in.
Matt, is that concluding your report right now?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about an important part of our role here is to communicate stories about how federal employees are being impacted by the shutdown. Those stories were one, heart-wrenching, but also very persuasive during the 35-day shutdown that we had back in 2019. We're going to be doing a solicitation about that. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so as the government shutdowns unfolds, we're going to be receiving a lot of media inquiries, looking for the press who wants to talk with federal employees such as yourselves from various agencies across the country. So we're planning on holding a media training on Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we'd like to solicit anyone of our members who would like to be, someone that we can go to, that we can send the press to, who would like to share your stories and to give the press updates on what it means to have a government shutdown for federal employees.
Yeah. So thank you, Matt. Last time we had, somewhere between 10 and 15, local members that had a story to tell and indicated to NFFE National that they were willing to talk to the media. And, that is solid gold to us. And in our fight to end a shutdown and to make the public sympathetic to what's going on for federal employees that are experiencing that hardship. Because to put a face to these stories, it's one thing to give some statistics, but when people are talking about the shutdown, they don't want to hear from us, really. Like, they don't want to hear from me and Steve and Matt. They want to hear from federal employees that are directly impacted by this. So if you yourself is somebody who is going to be experience hardship because of this shutdown, we want to know about it. And the caveat is, we are going to, in the end, hopefully connect you with members of the media who want you to tell your story. Last time we had, in 2019, we had people get on Jimmy Kimmel Live. We had folks on USA, so many media outlets, I couldn't even name them all. But dozens and dozens of news outlets in the media, on the radio, you name it. There wasn't a major media kind of avenue that NFFE members weren't a part of, and telling our story and putting that pressure to ultimately end the government shutdown. So be looking for a solicitation from Matt. We'd like to know if it's you. Great, give Matt your information, and we would need your personal email and a cell phone number that we can reach you at any time. And so that we can, and because you never know, we have members of the media that say, we're looking for this, we're looking for somebody in this agency, we're looking for somebody who's got a family impacted in that way. You never know who's going to be the right person. And so, we want to tell those stories. And it's very important for us. It's a big part of the job that we do to end these government shutdowns. So if you're willing, communicate with Matt. If you know somebody that is a member of the union that that has a good story to tell and might be willing to talk to the media, you shouldn't be nervous about that. You shouldn't be afraid of it in any way. Because there's nothing wrong with this. This is salt of the earth stuff that we're doing here to try to end this shutdown. And as Matt said, we're going to make sure that you get some media training so you have an idea what you're doing before you actually start to engage the media. And so that's a big part of what we're trying to do here. Okay, so next section here is question and answers. And I believe Matt is gonna take us through the Q&A.
Yeah, we're gonna get started with some of the questions that we received via email over the past couple of days. So our first question here is from Linda Peterson from local 2086, and she said that there has been word that employee paychecks will still be sent for the first 2 pay periods during a shutdown. I know we touched on this a little bit, but we just want to provide some clarity on regarding those paychecks.
Yeah, so as I said, there'll be a full paycheck. That folks will get this coming Friday, and then around the 13th there'd be a half paycheck, and then after that there would be no paycheck. I guess one thing I should mention as an exception to that would be the VA. We have, and it looks like we have some folks from the VA. The VA folks are not only are they essential, but they have what's called advanced appropriation. So they've got some money. They've got money otherwise. So my understanding is that they just continue on basically, and so good for them.
Matt, if I could, before we move on,
Sure.
it seems like from 2086 that may have been a question about wildland firefighters, even if it didn't specifically say so. So wildland firefighters got increase in pay as part of the president's bipartisan infrastructure package that passed in November of 2001, and it took us through the end of this fiscal year. So, according to that legislation, it would end in the next after 5 days here, if it isn't continued. It does appear from our conversations with the Forest Service that because this fire season has been a little bit lighter than normal, that there is enough money from that infrastructure package to continue that higher rate of pay for wildland firefighters for 2 additional pay periods. So that is correct as it relates to wildland firefighters. Beyond that, is when the impact of not having new appropriations, not having new standalone legislation to permanently fix the pay, wildland firefighter pay cliff would kind of go into effect. But it looks like we do have 2 additional pay periods for wildland firefighters.
Thanks for clearing that up, Randy. Second question from Linda there was about the Wind Center trainings. We have one next week, as well as a Forest Service training at the end of October. We wanted just clarity about whether those trainings will be taking place.
So we have a call with the W3 to discuss this, later on this afternoon. I would say, we talked about it, and from the NFFE end here, we are leaning towards canceling the class next week because it's just going to be a lot of complications with the shutdown very likely to happen. Very good chance that what we will do is just change the dates for the basic steward training to December. We've got a advanced class scheduled for the first week in December, and just try and move that from the first week in October to the first week in December. But we will put out information once we resolve that with the W3.
Thanks, Jeff. Sticking with the Forest Service here, we had a question if Forest Service essential employees can take sick leave during a furlough, and if so, how would they code or handle that?
So again, I would commend this document, the guidance for shutdown furloughs. There's a Q&A there. Essential employees, their leave is like originally canceled when the shutdown begins, but then they can request it, like re-request it, and it should be granted, under normal parameters. As far as the coding, I don't know how the coding would be done, but generally, if you are essential, you can still take sick leave if you need to.
Thanks, Jeff. Our next question here is from Kim Valadez from Federal Local 1. She wondered if VA employees will face any issues during a government shutdown. Traditionally, they've been spared during shutdowns in the past as they've been deemed essential, but they just weren't sure.
Yeah, so I emailed Tracy Theriot, who's the Chico of the VA, and she indicated that 96% of the VA is covered by the advanced appropriations, and so they they should really have limited impact.
Our next question here is from Rick from 1340. He was curious if they would receive official correspondence from the FAA, whether to report to work or not.
Yes, everybody should get individual notice of either that they're furloughed or that they're not furloughed and they're required to work.
And Rick's second question here is, will employees be made whole concerning lost benefits such as earned leave, government matching funds of TSP, government share of pre-tax health benefits, etc., after a shutdown?
Yes, so under the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act, pay and benefits are to be restored. Some of the mechanics of some of that stuff, like leave. I mean, if you had leave scheduled and it's canceled and then you're off, then I don't think you have to take leave again when you go back. But generally, you're made whole. And this will be the first time this law has been applied, so we will see if there's any quirks with it. But at this point, we don't know.
Moving on to our next question, one from Local 466. We have many new union stewards across the Forest Service. Could you go over some details about what roles, preparation, and tasks they should take on prior or during the furlough?
Yeah, I would also let Randy and Steve and Matt chime in on this, but I mean, we still have a few days left, and communication is extremely key. In the past shutdowns, the people that are furloughed, they're suddenly not allowed to use their work computers. They're suddenly not allowed to use their work email. They're not allowed to use their government phone. And so, to a large extent, in the past, we've just lost contact with them. So, signing up getting employees signed up for the NFFE news, at your local, building your list of everybody's personal email and their personal phone number. Those are extremely key things for us to do so that we are able to make contact. And as we need to take actions during the shutdown, we're able to reach out to people and enlist them in those efforts.
Steve and Randy, anything to add there?
Just any questions, call or email us. We are not shut down during the shutdown. We're at 100% capacity, if not more. So we're here if you need us.
And I did receive a couple emails during the call with questions. I have one here. I'm a wildland firefighter. I've worked for 2 different forests. During the last furlough, my past unit allowed us to stay home, while the other unit where this individual works now forced their employees to report to work. My question is, with this up and coming furlough, can my unit force us to report to work when other units are not?
So I don't have a detailed understanding of this, but my understanding, based on the past shutdowns, was that it depends. I mean, it depends on the time of year and the level of the fire threat and the part of the country that you're in. So you might be essential, or you might not be, and you're not going to know that until the very last minute. So that's about all I can say about that.
Okay, I'm going to turn to some of the questions in the chat now. One here, will the only contact for updated info news from NFFE be via the website? In terms of information that's coming from us, we will try to send email blasts out as well. That's why it's important that you sign up using your personal email to receive emails from us. And the second question there is, during the furlough, is NFFE allowed to contact union members? And yes, we are allowed to, and that's why we would need your personal email addresses.
You're allowed to, but we won't be able to on their government email, because they're instructed to turn their computers off. So that's why it's critical to try to build those personal contact networks.
And next question in the chat here.
Real quick, Matt.
Go for it.
It really, it depends on how long things go here. But we are going to continue to email things out regularly. I encourage everybody to go and follow NFFE's Facebook page. We put out a lot there, and for a lot of folks, they're more regular on Facebook than they are on their email. And so that's probably the best way for a lot of people to get a message from us, some update, and then of course, if things continue to get protracted, we'll be continuing to do calls like this so that we can gather regular feedback and give you updates. So it won't just be from the website. We'll use all the communication channels at our disposal.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks. Sorry, did you have something, Steve?
Yeah, just real quick, because I just was reading the comments. I had a question about, if the shutdown's only for a couple of days, will you still get half paychecks? No. If it's just for a couple of days long, the agencies should have the capacity to get all that paperwork into whatever administrative service deals with their paychecks. So if it's just a few days, you should get uninterrupted paychecks. The question would be if it goes for much longer than that, if it goes for over a week, then you have a reporting issue from agencies to those administrative services that produce the paychecks, and that's what actually causes the delay. So if it's a short one, just a few days, you should be good to go.
Thanks, Steve. Just going through the chat here again. We had a question with, will this recording be available to share with our locals? Yes, it is being recorded, and as soon as we conclude the call here, I'll put it up on the Government Shutdown Center, so it's available to everyone, and feel free to share that with everyone. Going down the list here, will the media training be announced in an e-blast, or will we need to raise our hands now? Feel free to contact me via my email, which is, I'll add it in the chat again. If you'd like to volunteer to be an NFFE spokesperson. But we can also send out an email reminder when we're going to have that training for anyone who's interested. Another question here, if the furlough extends for a long period and our essential employees cannot afford to go to work, can they be disciplined?
Yes, they can be. If they are, if management were to feel that they were not coming in, it was like some sort of a job action, that kind of thing. I would note that in the 35-day shutdown that we had in 2018, 2019, at the end, it was really the TSA and air traffic controllers were starting to call off with greater regularity. And that was a factor in the ending of it. So if it goes on for a long time, we'll just have to see what happens. We hope that it won't.
And our last question in the chat here, what is the extent of work limitations of accepted first responders when required to be at work? Many times firefighters find themselves picking up the workload. I believe that rec means recreational and other disciplines as public continues their use of the forest.
So I think, it's general that when in these kind of situations and you have essential employees that they end up giving a lot of work. I mean, because they're trying to cover for a lot of people that are not there. There are limitations and, there may be limitations in your collective bargaining agreement about how much work I think in the Forest Service, of how much work you can be given outside your job classification. So, I mean, those are issues that you will have to just deal with as they come up. But I think it's pretty common that the essential folks are worked very hard and overworked during a shutdown.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I did get another question via email here. I think we had some folks join after we had already discussed this, but Jeff, if you don't mind just going over the effects that the shutdown might have on the Winton Singer Center.
Yeah, so we have a call later today to kind of make a decision about whether we are going to go forward with we've got a class scheduled to start this Sunday, and so folks will be traveling on this Saturday. And we haven't finally decided, but on our end, we're going into that discussion, looking to postpone that class. And a likely thing that might happen is that we move it to the first week in December and have it take up the slot of the federal employees advanced class scheduled then. And then that class we would push into 2024. But we'll make those decisions finally later today, and then we'll let everybody know. Because I know people are planning to travel at the end of the week. So.
Thanks, Jeff. I think that concludes the questions that I've received. If you have any final questions, feel free to send them in the chat or just raise your hand using that reaction button and you can unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like. Okay, seeing that there's not any more questions, I'll turn it over to Randy for some closing remarks. Oh, we just had one question come in through the chat. Thank you for that one. My understanding is that you are not supposed to perform non-accepted work when in a government shutdown. So fire employees should not be performing any other duties other than those that are in the accepted categories. It looks like,
it's a hard one to answer. You check with your supervisors on that one. The agencies have wide latitude to determine what's essential and what's not, and it may not be consistent from one shutdown to the other. So you may want to just check up your supervisory line and make that determination.
Okay, thank you, Steve. If there's no more questions, I'll turn it over to Randy now for some closing remarks.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all again for all that you do every day, both working for the American people and the tremendous service that we provide, Americans all across the country. And then, of course, everything that you do for our members as well as for all the union leaders out there. And again, thank you for your membership. We're in for a little bit of a tough time here, we think, but this union cares about every single member. and we're going to do everything we can to help you in this process, to keep you informed, be transparent, and ultimately bring this to an expeditious end, and you know, and to keep you informed and mobilized along the way. And you know, we appreciate everybody, you know, stepping up and doing the things that we're asking, to write those letters of Congress, call your members of Congress, and help everybody in your sphere to do those things as well. Those really, really do help. And so you know, again, thank you for all you do every day. I can't thank you enough. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Randy.
Hey, Randy,
Thank you,
should
Greg.
those letters indicate that we're, writing as NFFE members, or just not really?
You can do it either way. I think the form letter does say that.
Okay.
But I think they're adjustable as well. So you can kind of, you know, make them however you want.
Okay, thanks.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.